focus on ad copy for your Facebook ads. Now, look, I'm a marketing guy, and so I really nerd out on a lot of this stuff. And I love the fact that just by putting words out there on a page, you could tell a story, and that story is persuasive enough to get them to invest in you. And so while that really excites me, I understand and fully appreciate that not everyone knows a ton about ad copy or copywriting and can get overwhelmed by all of the different possibilities when it comes to what you should write in your Facebook ads. And what I wanted to get across before we start is that you don't have to have a degree in marketing, but you do have to have a really strong sense of your customers, the way they talk, the words they use, the pains that they experience, what makes them happy, what pisses them off, all of that stuff. And if you put that into your Facebook ad the right way, that's how you're going to drive course sales. I always like to say, in fact, that it's the image that gets their attention, but it's the copy that makes the sale. I'll say that again. The image grabs their attention, but it's the copy, the words that you use and the way you position your offer that actually makes the sale. So if you've run Facebook ads in the past and maybe you didn't get a lot of results, one of the first things that I kind of look at is their ad copy and whether or not we can turn that into a sharper, more persuasive story that meets their target market and solves their problems. The other thing that I wanted to sort of preface this with before we get started is this is an ongoing process. Finding and creating the right copy is not necessarily something that takes you 15 minutes one time and then you're done. You're probably going to want to try multiple different ads, multiple different copies, different types of offers to see what resonates. And there's no kind of one size fits all way to produce great copy for your Facebook ads. Your audience might be different than mine. Your course is going to be different. The way that I communicate it might be different. There are lots of different variables. However, for everyone in this Rainmaker course, let's be crystal clear here. The end goal for all of us is to find our target market and excite them enough with the ad for them to click. And if we can do that, drive enough qualified traffic to our a lead magnet or webinar or whatever it is, that's how we're going to make big sales. Now, even though there's no one size fits all approach to it, what we at Course Clients have found is that there is a definite pattern out there, one formula for success. And if you structure your copy this way and in this sequence, this is going to give you the best possible start to create ad copy that's going to sell you courses. And so what I wanted to do in this module is share with you what that formula is. And then we'll break each one of those pieces down step by step. I'll show you some examples of what good copy looks like at each step. We'll round out with a couple of examples and key thoughts. So let's dive right into it. Like I mentioned, there is a definite pattern or process. And what we teach all of our students is to start their ad copy following this same formula to start with. And that copy after the headline always starts with a question. Then we build some rapport. We want to demonstrate our own expertise. We sometimes imply scarcity or some sort of time sensitivity to our offer as we introduce our offer toward the end of the copy. And then finally always end with a strong call to action. And so this is the best practice. This is the starting block. If you have no idea where to start, or if you've tried Facebook ads in the past but haven't used this, this is the process that we want you all to get really comfortable writing in to start with. So let's break each one of these down, starting with creating an ad that begins with a question. When I say start with a question, I mean one that's going to resonate directly with your target customer. Remember, you have to have a deep knowledge of your target customer. And the right question to start with is one that gets an implied yes. Like, are you struggling with XYZ? Well, yes, of course I'm struggling with XYZ. You've done all your targeting, you know your target market and what their pain points are. And if you do this correctly, what you want the audience, to think is that you wrote that ad specifically for them. I always like to say, you've done it if your target customer thinks of the phrase just like me. As they read the ad, they identify with the pain and they think, oh, yeah, this person understands my pain point. He's reaching an audience, or he's looking for an audience just like me. And so, what are a couple of examples? And so, again, I'm going with the example of somebody that wants to create or has already created a programming course for a programming language called Solidity. So if you are big into blockchain like me, to program smart contracts, you need to know a language called Solidity, a programming language called Solidity. One of the big pain points there is not a lot of people know how to program in Solidity. So you have to teach yourself for the most part. And so in this case, a question that would resonate with the audience, one example is, are you trying to learn code in Solidity, but sick of how long it's taking? Absolutely. If you're self-taught and trying to figure this out as you go, absolutely, they would be getting the implied yes and thinking of the phrase just like me. What's another example? Are you tired of constantly debugging your code while trying to learn Solidity? One of the buzzwords, or one of the things that a lot of engineers or developers have to do, is something called debugging. They need to go back and fix those areas of code that they messed up. And so if I could use a buzzword or speak in their own language and identify with the pain of constantly debugging, that's a great question. If you've done your job well by starting with a question, you've hooked them. You now have earned the right to demonstrate your expertise and show how you solve this pain. And that's where we go to the second stage of the copy process, which is, at this point, you need to build rapport so that your audience can either identify with you or demonstrate your expertise. Are you actually an expert in this field? That's what they're looking for next. You want to basically connect statements to prove that you understand their pain or that you can solve their pain. That can look like a million different things, and it's going to be different depending on kind of your own journey, your own path, or how you solve this or whatnot. But one example, continuing on with the same example here, is I spent 10 plus years programming for a Silicon Valley startup until one day I had had enough. I wanted to turn my passion for blockchain into a career by programming smart contracts, but didn't know how. I spent weeks looking for a course. Eventually, I got so frustrated, I decided to teach myself. After months of debugging and trial and error, I found that the key to learning Solidity was in a simple 3-step process that I call the S3 method. And if we break this down, you can see that this uncovers all those pain points. The pain of debugging, the pain of finding a course, the pain of it taking a long time, and something really sophisticated this person did that teased it out was that they already started to tease out or brand their value. I created this simple 3-step process, and it's called the S3 method. This isn't just another generic book or course. What is this 3-step process? Man, what is this S3 method? I'm really intrigued. So that's what you want to do. Build rapport, show your expertise. And if you can do that, then you go to the next step, which is implied time sensitivity and or introducing your offer. Third step, like I mentioned, you don't always have to do time sensitivity. Sometimes this works really well. Sometimes people want to skip this step. This is where you just use what I want to do is introduce to you guys today, or for a limited time, I want to give you free access, or whatever it is. So determine whether or not you want to use implied scarcity or time sensitivity. But really the big unveil here, or the big reveal, is this is where you introduce your offer. And by that, I mean you want to introduce whatever it is in your lead magnet as your giveaway, or your webinar, whatever it is in the process that you've built so far with the Course Clients program. Example of how we did that here is, for a limited time, I want to show you the exact process that I used that allowed me to start programming smart contracts in just minutes a day without boring books, lessons, or seminars. By using the S3 method, I started making 3 times what I was earning at my day job, and now I'm excited to show you how you can do the same. So again, introduce the offer, kind of some creative copy here by saying you don't have to use boring books or sit through lessons or any seminars or anything. And what's the payoff? By using this method, they've earned way more than they were getting at their day job. again, this resonates with the pain that maybe their customers or maybe this person's target market is trying to identify with. They want to quit their 9 to 5, or they want to make a nice side income, whatever it is. But by introducing your offer in a creative way like this that connects back to the pain, you create a really persuasive and really attractive ad. Last but not least, end with a call to action. And this is probably the single most frustrating thing that I see with a lot of course creators is they spend all this time talking about their offer, but they don't end with a strong call to action. And this is where you just want to tell people and make it crystal clear what their next step is. If you want them to register for your webinar, make sure you call out specifically, register for my webinar, spots are limited. Or if you have a playbook, sounds basic, but you want to end with download the free playbook now. If you leave this part out, I'm telling you, you're not going to get the same results as if you just spent a bunch of time building up your offer and then implying that this is the next step. Really make it crystal clear what their next step is at the end of your ad. So that's the process 1 through 5. Let's spend a little bit of time talking about headlines now, because right underneath the image, you want a headline that complements your offer and is congruent with all of this, and you want to have a key benefit. So the optimal way to create a headline that attracts and drives sales is twofold. Describe your offer and connect it to a key benefit. So for instance, earn extra cash by learning to program Solidity in minutes a day. Offer is learn to program in Solidity. Benefits are earn extra cash, and it only takes minutes a day. Next one, code smart contracts without spending hours debugging. Offer helps them code smart contracts. Benefit is you don't have to spend hours and hours doing the dreaded debugging tasks. Or become a Solidity expert with this simple 3-step process. So experiment with different headlines, but each headline should have those 2 elements in it. So let's take a look at some examples. Again, this isn't rocket science, but when you connect it this way and follow this simple process, you're starting to see how you can create really effective and persuasive ads that now that you've hooked them with the image will actually drive course sales. So let's take a look at this one, which is putting this all together. Again, the headline here is become a Solidity expert with this simple 3-step process. The copy says, are you trying to learn to code Solidity but sick of how long it's taking? I spent 10 plus years programming for a Silicon Valley startup until one day I'd had enough. I wanted to turn my passion for blockchain into a career by programming smart contracts, but didn't know how. I spent weeks looking for a course. Eventually I got so frustrated, I decided to teach myself. After months of debugging and trial and error, I found that the key to learning Solidity was in a simple 3-step process that I call the S3 method. For a limited time, I'm going to show you the exact process I used that allowed me to start programming smart contracts in just minutes a day without boring books, lessons, or seminars. By using the S3 method, I started making 3 times what I was earning at my day job, and now I'm excited to show you how you can do the same. Register for my free webinar today. Spots are limited and filling up fast. Again, really persuasive, looks really professional, but when you break it down, it's something that anybody can do. Let's look at one last example here that's different from this programming one. This is one that we actually used at course clients. One of the ads that was really successful for us looked like this, and the headline here was revealed, the new proven way to sell your course. Struggling to get consistent, predictable sales for your online course? Why drive yourself nuts with stressful launches, lazy affiliates, unresponsive email lists, and pointless hours posting quote unquote valuable free content on social media? Click below and download the free playbook for free I've just released that shows you the simple 2-step method for selling your course consistently and predictably month in and month out. So there's some really subtle, sophisticated stuff going in there, because we actually used a second question to build rapport and demonstrate expertise. We know that launching a course is stressful and affiliates don't always come through and email lists don't always work out. So building rapport while using a second question. And the call to action also introduces the offer. Click below, get the playbook for free. It's a 2-step methodology for selling your course, so on and so forth. So a couple really good examples here that you can see when you put it all together, it turns into really cool, persuasive copy that almost anybody can do. And so in closing, I wanted to give a couple of parting thoughts here. While this seems pretty easy, and I don't want you guys to try this one time and only spend 15 minutes on it, I want you guys to not just get married to one ad, test multiple different ad copies. Like I mentioned, don't just stick with one headline. Have 3 or 4 different headlines. Don't just have one story that you use to build rapport. Test multiple different stories that you use. And it's the combination of those different headlines, different stories, and by testing and tweaking different things that you'll eventually find the optimal ad text that's going to move the most courses for you. Another thing goes without saying, but bears repeating, is write in your customer's language. If your customer is a little bit more affluent, you want to use verbiage that's a little more affluent. If it's a little bit more basic and generic, don't use the highfalutin terms in there as well. Seems basic, but really spend some time getting to know your target customer and then use their language. To go side by side with that, you can use different buzzwords, different things like defragging and debugging and all the different programs speak. However, you don't want to do so overly. You don't want to overkill or go overboard on it. So experiment with different buzzwords. Don't have an ad just chock full of like jargon and buzzwords, though. That's not necessarily going to move the needle. Last but not least, the people that are most successful and write the most persuasive ad copy are ones that really enjoy this process, fall in love with the process, so to speak. The more time that you spend thinking about it and editing and copying and tweaking and massaging the copy, the better it gets. I like to think that with every edit, it's like sharpening the sword. Every time I go through and massage things a little more or edit, I'm making that edge a little bit sharper, a little bit sharper, a little bit sharper, until you've got the best possible ad copy, the most persuasive possible combination that you can. So with that, guys, that's going to wrap up our training on Facebook ad copy. Go ahead and experiment with some different things, and then we'll see you in the next module.